I'm
X-Men
excited.
97,
Oh yes, X-Men 97. Another
number
week.
4.
Very nostalgia trip this week.
The return of Mojo was goated because Mojo is he's a recurring villain in the original show.
Yes, yeah, I feel like I recognize the imagery, but I don't remember any of the old Mojo episodes.
As he kind of said, his whole thing was he was a interdimensional TV producer who's also a mega psychopath, and he like kidnapped the X-Men on a number of occasions to be part of his crazy dangerous game shows, which are just like fights to the death because they get really good ratings and that's what feeds him. And of course, he'd lost loads of weight because TVs died at the hands of video games. Quite meta.
Yep.
So then he dates Jubilee, who's obviously like an arcade girly, and tries to trap her in a game. Motendo, just stunning.
Great name. Looked like a Genesis.
I mean, yeah, back in 97, that kind of makes sense. Sega Genesis was about 95, wasn't it? I mean, you were around.
Sega Genesis.
89. So a bit late.
So
but the controller is a similar shape.
But yeah, getting that 90s era almost.
And they were also 16-bit, which is correct. But yeah, so that's very cool. Got a bit of Sunspot in the adventure, although we didn't get any of his powers.
Yeah, I really thought he was
going to, a little bit.
I really thought he was going to force him to kind of use his powers.
Seeing an older Jubilee like clone essentially was really cool.
I was like, really cool. I was so confused who this character that had been helping them was going to be. And then yeah, when it revealed it was a older Jubilee, I thought that was a really clever way of doing that. Really cool.
I will be honest. This episode makes sense in context to use Mojo, but there's a character here called Arcade, whose entire thing is like making video games and trapping superheroes in them. So like when I saw what this episode was about, I assumed it was going to be Arcade.
Okay.
So for it to be Mojo instead was actually a bit of a twist for me, because I was like, Arcade is like, this is his whole MO.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah,
it allowed them to bring Mojo back and keep the recurring thing going. I loved the art, like that first level they got put in, and where it kept cutting between like game version of like the side scroller and then them, and mixing the 8-bit and 3D sort of like visual styles. The artists clearly had so much fun with this.
I understand with stuff like this, it makes it take longer. I'm willing to wait longer when artists have good working conditions first and fucking foremost.
Yeah.
But when they let them have fun with stuff like this, because that's where all of this is coming from, right? Like,
oh yeah.
The characters' interaction, the way all the fight scenes are looking so crisp and so clean, the smoothness between 2 and 3D, the use of the 8-bit and 16-bit style in this. That only happens if artists are given a bit of playroom.
Oh yeah, and like I saw a thing. I saw a thing as well. There's so many like hidden Easter eggs. Like on that 8-bit level, there's like a poster with all the X-Men faces on it, and it's like that's from a cover of a magazine. On the character select, there's like other characters. There's a gap, and then the one right on the edge. Apparently, someone has zoomed in, and it looks like Cable. So it's like hint at, and it's like hiding all those things in. It's just it, like you said, the artists have the freedom to have fun with it and put in that detail to hide all these things in. It was very cool.
It was so much fun to watch. I'm not sure how I feel about it being like a medley episode almost.
Yeah, it was. It almost felt filler-esque
for the first half of the episode.
Yeah, but then it's like it kind of made somewhat of sense, I guess. I feel like it was they needed something after what happened last episode. There was obviously going to be a bit of a dip as need to let time pass for things to escalate.
Yeah.
That's allowed them to bring Mojo back, which maybe this is the only time that they could kind of fit that in and it makes sense. And then I guess it's a way to kind of, it was Jubilee's birthday, so let's have something a bit more fun for that episode, maybe. But we also got the Forge stuff as well.
So I've not read the comic. I did a bit of research. The Forge Storm stuff is a very popular, by the looks of it, X-Men arc from back in the late 80s. So I've done a little bit of looking into it. I didn't want to look in too much because I didn't want the story to be spoiled for me. It's not like I'm going to go back and read the comics like right this minute anyway. But some people were a bit unhappy that the start of that arc only got half an episode. They're like, come on now, we could have done a full episode here.
Yeah.
So people are a little bit unsure about that. I think they would rather have seen the Mojo Jubilee stuff fleshed out a little bit into a full episode.
I get you.
Even if it might have been more of a filler episode, but like allow us to have a lot of fun with the fight sequences in there.
Yeah.
And then from next week move into the Forge and Storm storyline, and kind of go from there. At the end of the day, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
The episode was still really good. I did find the contrast between like the bright arcade Mojo craziness to like the quite almost drama-esque Storm and Forge stuff.
Yeah.
It was like quite jarring. Like it felt like two distinct episodes anyway.
Yeah, it did.
So I completely agree with that criticism of they're so different. Just make them their own episodes anyway, and then allow yourself to fill it out a little bit more. But I still really enjoyed it, and I'm gonna chow down on next week's episode.
Oh yeah,
I'm so ready for it.
I mean, there's obviously they're setting up Storm getting her powers back.
Yeah,
and then there was also the talk of the little setup at the breakfast thing about like NATO and getting Genosa. So they're obviously setting things up for where things are going to go in the future here.
Absolutely. And it was cool for Forge to get a bit more explanation as to what his powers are and stuff like that.
Because I didn't really know much about him. And then also finding out that he was essentially the source of the collars and stuff.
Yeah, and this is the thing. It's quite a recurring theme that the government hates mutants, but every chance they get to use them for something, they take that advantage. They turn Wolverine into a murderous weapon. Yep. They work with Professor X to help keep an eye on mutants. They will use them any chance they get, but at the end of the day, it's only ever so they can control them more.
Yep.